The gentleman's time has expired.
Give us some objective standards versus when certain things get reached, we might be able to get back to having our liberty. When? What are the numbers?
Well,
You're going to see a gradual, right now we're at an unacceptably high level. On a daily basis, it's unacceptably high, regardless of who you are. What you're going to see as more and more people get vaccinated, and we get over 3 million people a day, you're going to see the level of infection come down, and gradually there will be more flexibility for doing the things that you're talking about.
Where does it get to? When it comes down, what number do we get our liberties back? Tell me the number. Tell me the number.
When 90% of the members of Congress get vaccinated.
But you're not a doctor, Mr. Clyburn. He is. What is the number?
I can't
Thank
give...
you for recognizing me, Mr. Clyburn. Thank you.
Chair now
for giving me the
recognizes
time.
for 5
I'd
minutes.
like my question
Ms.
answered.
Maloney.
I don't want...
Reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my
Regular
time.
order. Regular order.
No,
It's
Just a
the-
moment.
for all.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want you to answer my question. The American people want Dr. Fauci to answer the
Well-
question. What does it have to be?
Expire, sir. You need to respect the chair and shut your mouth.
You are listening to the Armwood Opinion channel here on YouTube. And today we're talking about the convergence of fascism with the Republican Party and America First, how all three of these things are tied together. We heard this past week, crazy congressman from Georgia, Majoree Greene, talking about setting up an America First caucus in the House of Representatives. Other members of the House of Representatives with more experience, more knowledge, better education, shot down the idea because they know what America First stands for. It stands for fascism. It stands for anti-Semitism. It stands for white supremacy. And it goes way back in America, long before Donald Trump. Donald Trump got it from the idea from his daddy when he was younger. But what it's really about is a movement prior to World War II, fronted by a man by the name of Charles Lindbergh, who was the first person to fly transatlantic, across the Atlantic. And he wanted to restrict immigration to Anglo-Saxons and not Jews, and he supported Germany's activities in Europe, conquering Eastern Europe, Poland, etc. And he felt the Jews should not resist and that the United States should not get involved in World War II. And he specifically spoke to Jewish groups in the United States, saying this: instead of agitating for war, the Jewish groups in this country should be opposing in every possible way, for they will be among the first to feel its consequences, that of war. Lindbergh said, tolerance is a virtue that depends on peace and strength. History shows that it cannot survive war and devastations. A few far-sighted Jewish people realize this and stand opposed to the intervention, but the majority still do not. Their greatest danger to this country, and speaking of Jewish people, he's saying, their greatest danger to this country lies in their large ownership and influence in motion pictures, our press, our radio, and our government. This is anti-Semitism at its worst. This is fascism. So this movement kept on going, and Donald Trump's father was a minor figure in this movement. It kept on going until Pearl Harbor, when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and the U.S. entered into World War II. Then it quickly dissipated. But those type of white supremacist attitudes, and understand that in the early days of the 20th century, Jewish people and Italian Americans were not considered fully white. They were considered to be lesser Europeans because they weren't of Anglo-Saxon Germanic blood. And this is crazy as it seems. This is where the roots of this type of attitude comes from. Remember, Donald Trump is of German and Scottish ancestry. His grandfather was from Germany. The family name was Drump. This is all coming out of a tradition. Okay, let's keep on going here. We also have idiots like Congressman Jim Jordan, who was questioning Dr. Fauci at a congressional hearing this past week.
When we get the level of infection in this country low enough that it is not a really high threat.
What is low enough? Give me a number. What, I mean, we had 15 days to slow the spread, turned into 1 year of lost liberty. What metrics, what measures, what has to happen before Americans get their freedoms back?
My message, Congressman Jordan, is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can to get the level of infection in this country low that it is no longer a threat. That is when. And I believe when that happens, you will see.
What determines when?
I'm sorry.
What measure? I mean, are we just going to continue this forever, or when do we get to the point? What measure? What standard? What objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
You know, you're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure to prevent people from dying and going to the hospital.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci? They've been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing, Congressman Jordan.
Well, that's
I look at
obvious.
this as a public health thing.
And he's another one of these America First typers, not very bright, from Ohio. And he kept on complaining about the restrictions that states have placed on people's behavior because of the COVID pandemic. And he's whining and crying and saying that to Dr. Fauci, when can these restrictions be lifted? When can we have our First Amendment rights back? Listen to this fool.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Give us some objective standards versus when certain things get reached, we might be able to get back to having our liberty. When? What are the numbers?
Well,
You're going to see a gradual, right now we're at an unacceptably high level. On a daily basis, it's unacceptably high, regardless of who you are. What you're going to see as more and more people get vaccinated, and we get over 3 million people a day, you're going to see the level of infection come down and down, and gradually there will be more flexibility for doing the things that you're talking about.
Where does it get to? When it comes down, what number do we get our liberties back? Tell me the number. Tell me the number.
When 90% of the members of Congress get vaccinated.
But you're not a doctor, Mr. Clyburn. He is. What is the number?
I can't
Thank you
give,
for recognizing me, Mr. Clyburn. Thank you.
Chair
for
now
giving me the time.
recognizes for 5
I'd
minutes.
like my question
Ms.
answered.
Maloney.
I don't want.
Reclaiming my time.
I want a
Reclaiming my
question.
time.
Regular order. regular order.
No,
If
Just a
you
moment.
free for all,
Mr.
I'm
Mr.
in.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I don't want you to answer my question. The American people want Dr. Fauci to answer the
Well,
question.
But
What
your
does it
time
have to be?
expires, sir.
You need to respect the chair and shut your mouth.
Number one, the restrictions that states and the federal government has placed in areas it controls because of COVID have nothing to do with the First Amendment. Let's read the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of a religion. We don't have we don't have a state religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of the speech or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. None of that is involved with the COVID restrictions. They're health restrictions. Go all the way back to Jacobson versus Commonwealth of Massachusetts, U.S. 11, 1905, which stated that the government has the right to limit the size of gatherings of non-family members, consistent with the state police powers over health and welfare. Justice John Marshall Harlan upheld a fine for $5 for an adult who refused to take a compulsory smallpox vaccination. For you anti-vaccinators out there, yes, the government can force you to take a vaccination if you don't want to. The only way the First Amendment would apply would be if the government was targeting a specific religion. For saying like evangelicals, and only evangelicals cannot get together and worship on Sunday. That would be a violation of the First Amendment. But obviously that's not happening. Jim Jordan should know this. He went to a law school in Ohio, but he should have known that. That's constitutional law 101 in most law schools. Anyway, we have these right-wingers that are going crazy. And they're trying to take us back in time. It's not just voting rights, it's the whole panoply of right-wing cultural issues that these right-wing radicals are trying to enforce upon us. The invasion and insurrection at the Capitol was about this. These folks were carrying Confederate flags and calling racist names, which I'm not going to repeat, at officers of color in the Capitol Police, as well as murdering one officer and injuring over 140, and another officer died. Over 140 officers were injured. This is savage behavior. And we have people like Tucker Carlson on Fox Noise. That's what I call Fox News, Fox Noise, but there's no news on it. And claiming that this was a peaceful demonstration, that it was not an insurrection. They lie. They're not good people. We have to understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to take America backwards to the 1870s and 1880s. And we have to stop them from doing it. American history is cyclical. It's not one of progress, which is a myth that's told between liberals to conservatives, that America has consistently made progress. It's a lie. We've made progress and then we've regressed. We've made progress and then we've regressed. But the basic structure of America as a white dominant, male dominant, racially and sexually stratified society has remained the same. The powers that are in control now have been in control. We must resist them so they cannot further erode our rights. They're eroding our voting rights right now right where I live in the state of Georgia, we have Brian the Devil Kemp as governor, and we have to get him out of office, and we've got to turn the Republican State Assembly in Georgia Democrat. But we're dealing with this around the country. There are, 47 bills pending in state legislatures around the country to restrict voting rights? This is unacceptable, folks, and we must fight and do something about this. Okay, hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe, please. That way the YouTube algorithm will spread this video and all of my videos more widely. And we must remember that resistance is not futile. We proved it in defeating Trump last November. We proved it here in Georgia by taking away 2 Republican Senate seats and turning the Senate blue. Remember, Raphael Warnock's seat is back up in 2022. He was filling the remaining term of Johnny Oxendine, who had resigned due to health reasons. So we have to be prepared to fight this Republican onslaught. All right? Have a good evening. And once again, hit the like button, subscribe. See you next week.